Hello everyone. In this video, we are going to see the basic introduction of Struts framework. The Struts was introduced into the IT market in the early 2000, like 2000. During that time, Struts framework was very first framework before the Spring it was introduced. And before that, we were using servlet application for developing a web application. During that time, Struts framework was very powerful and widely used framework. Even nowadays also, now I'm recording this video 2025 February. During this time also, most of the banking and insurance companies still their applications are built on Struts 1.3 version. Let's name it as 1.x version. So more than Struts 2, Struts 1 was very popular. Most of the banking and insurance applications were developed using the Struts framework. So still there are plenty of banking applications still running on Struts 1.3. They don't want to migrate it to the test frameworks like Spring Boot or microservices, considering the sensitivity or the criticality of the functionality they developed using Struts, because they might be developed some security related module or transaction related module. Though we are in cloud era, they don't want to migrate it to the Struts 1.3 version to any other framework, because they don't want to take the risk of migrating their very critical functionality to the other framework. This is the high level execution diagram of Struts 1.3 application. In the Spring application, we have the MVC pattern, right? Model view controller pattern. So in the same way, Struts also was following the MVC pattern. The Spring Boot application will send the request first to the controller. From the controller class, based on the request, right? The URI, the URL pattern, that request will be forwarded to the appropriate method, and from that method we'll be calling the service class, from the service class to DAO, from DAO to database. So in the same way, so user is sending the request, so the user request first it will go to the controller class, same like the Spring Boot application. This action servlet is the one which is provided by the Struts framework. So first user will send the request, the user request will go to the controller, right? So in Struts framework, I mean, specifically in Struts 1.3, this action servlet and Struts config file, these two are commonly called as the controller class, acting as a controller class. So first user sends the request to the controller. So it is the controller. So for the given request based on the URL, the controller class will refer for the given URL, what is the corresponding action class. So action class in the sense what? We know that in the Spring MEC pattern, based on the URL and the method, right? HTTP method, get method, post method, we are redirecting the request to the particular specific method in the control. In the same way, based on the user URL, we are directing the user request to the specific class. That class here it's called action class. Here controller class is nothing but the combination of the action servlet and struts config file. This struts config file will have the mapping between the user request and the corresponding action class. For example, is a college website, and that college website can be accessed by the different people, like a student itself wanted to see his mark, internal mark or semester mark, and he will be accessing and trying to retrieve the data. And staff also can access the college website, and public like parents also, they wanted to see the mark for their children. So the college website can be accessed by the multiple people, so the request also will be different, right? So for example, if student is trying to access the application, their URL pattern will be in like this. If staff is trying to access the college website in order to enter the internal assessment for the student, with the URL might be ending with this one. And if parent is trying to access, for example, they are wanted to pay the fee for their son or daughter, for them the URL might be ending with fee. So based on the URL, based on the URL pattern, we will be mapping each URL pattern to the one particular action class, one particular action. For student, the action class can be a student action, and assessment could be assessment action, fee could be a fee action. So when we are doing the hands-on, right, that time you will be able to understand what I mean here. For this demonstration purpose, let's consider the website is being trying to access by the student. So he's sending the request is ending with the slash student, and is going to the controller class. Controller class is nothing but the combination of the action servlet and struts config file. In the struts config file, we have this mapping. Student is being mapped with the student action class. So what happen is this action class is being referred. In the action class, will have the default method called execute. So that is also we are going to see it in the hands-on in the next video. So that action class will execute that default method called execute method. This action class will be connected with the service class, but the service class we are not showing in this diagram. And the service class will be connected with the DAO class. So the model bin, let's consider as a DAO class. This DAO class will be connected with the database, and it fetches the student information, returning back as a model bin. And this model bin is rendering back to the service class. From service, it is returning back the action class. The action class will holds this model bin. The model bin is something but which holds the student information. So this action class also returning the logical string back to the controller class. A logical string is nothing but what is the result of the whole execution, whether it was able to fetch the student data successfully or not. If it was able to fetch the stored information successfully from the database, then it will return the string like success. We can give any name here. If it is failure, then it returns logical string as failure. We need to have the mapping for this logical string in the struts config file. The same struts config file will be having a mapping for this logical string being returned by the action class also. So if it is success, then it has to redirect to the student info JSP. If it is failure, then failure.jsp, and we need to display the reason for this failure. This mapping also we will be having in the same states config file. So this is the overall flow. Also, we have the one more component called form here. What is form actually? The student is trying to access the college website. So in order to access the website, he need to enter his roll number and password for authentication purpose. So he is entering this his roll number and password in the JSP page, and he clicks submit button. So once he clicks the submit button, uh, the request will send to the controller class, as I said, and then the controller class will decide which action form it has to be redirected to. Right, for authentication, we might have the different separate action class called authentication action.java. Right? So we need to retain or we need to hold the student credential information in the action class, and we need to process it. Credential provided by the student is correct or not, right? This form is useful for holding the data entered by the student. I mean, form data. Action class has execute method. This execute method has action mapping, action form, request, and response. So this action form will hold the information about the student. This action form class will be help us to get the student credential information entered by the student when he trying to access the application, so that we can validate them against the LDAP server to check whether the user is legit or not. To summarize, first user sends the request through the browser and goes to the controller. Controller is nothing but the combination of action server and struts config. And we have the mapping between the user request and the action class in the config file, the struts config file. So based on the request URL pattern, we'll find out the corresponding action class. Action class will execute the execute method, and this action class is connected with service, from service to DAO, and DAO to database. And the database, from database, data will be fetched, and it sending back to the model, I mean DAO class, and then back to the service class, and then the action class. The action class will return the logical string back to the controller. Controller will have the mapping between this logical string JSP page, and then this JSP page. In this JSP page, either based on the logical string, either will display the data or the error message. Okay, this is the overall flow. You will be able to understand clearly about this flow, the complete flow of execution, in the next video with the help of a hands-on program. Okay, thank you.